or fifth. You can say it all you want, it don't explain shit. Somebody told me that you never thought you see this TBIRD on some clean shit. Feet down on the ground, now I'm up and running. Really fuck you fam, so ain't saying nothing. I take boxes bigger than Coxon, Hoxton, and I'm chilling like Graham Coxon,
Well, so 8 or 9 years old, something like this, my dad, cause my dad's a huge jazz fan, and he wanted me, I think he wanted from long before I even existed, to have a child that played the saxophone. And I fucking hated the sax. So when it came time to choosing instruments, I chose the trumpet instead, sort of just to spite him, not even because I liked the instrument. I always wanted to be a drummer, and so I did this for quite a while. I was in a jazz band and this kind of thing, and then I started playing drums when I was sort of 15 in church and this kind of thing. And this is sort of when I guess I got interested in sort of songwriting and all this kind of stuff. Sort of in upstate New York, where I grew up, there was a studio there, and a lot of the sessions that came through, my drum teacher would ask to be played on. So I just was like, so this 15-year-old kid, and I'd only really listened to hip hop until then. And then suddenly I was going and I would just hang out in the studio. Well, all kinds of different stuff, was laid down. And I suppose this is when I really started, just sort of like every weekend going and hang out and doing this. And then I played in different bands, did this sort of session drummer thing for a while, and so really got into analog synthesizers and then getting into the production side. And I was always a vocalist. I think I just didn't have the confidence to just sort of put myself out there or whatever. And at some point I just thought, well, life is short, why not just do this? Saying that I was definitely like a hip hop fan first, and then I just sort of had this period of discovery where I tried to be a lot of different things other than maybe who I necessarily was. And it sort of, at a point I guess I sort of fell out of love with hip hop, or I didn't really see how I could maybe be involved because of certain ways that like the music was marketed and et cetera. And then I sort of, I don't know, I just sort of found my way back to it. But what I found was that, all the stuff that I had learned while I was away, could feed back into what I was doing to hopefully try and do something fresh. Yeah, I'm into this really like, warm sound, or what's called like soulful mixes kind of thing, and that has this nice round bottom, and the levels are never pushed to this sort of stupid level. And there's, of course, dynamics in the recording. That's that was always one of the great things I still come back to when I listen to 90s hip hop. We can get into really geeky shit about it, but it's probably boring. But, it's just that, when you sample these records where there's so much like depth in the record, it immediately means that even though it's a sample, you've got this, you've got that sort of nice body to it. And so if you have somebody with a great voice over top of it, those records are fucking classics. Nas and Notorious B.I.G. and Eric B. Rakim, blah blah blah, whatever you name it. As I was doing the more of the studio stuff and hanging out with different people, getting into different kinds of records and whatever, I noticed that there were just a lot more options than maybe the ones that were being explored, and sort of about. And there's also this real, in the U.S. It doesn't exist as much anymore, but there definitely used to be this like real, if you listen to hip hop, you only listen to hip hop, and anything else is like, you're a traitor of some kind. And I fell out with it. I remember having a knockdown, drag out argument in front of my high school with like a group of my friends, because it was like, I was listening to this sellout music and all this kind of stuff. So it was that, and then it was also just that. I didn't hear in a lot of the records that were being produced like sort of post Notorious B.I.G. dying or whatever. It lost, a lot of this thing was lost, and it was just like people rapping over like fucking horrible pop tracks. There wasn't even like cool anymore. And I think it was just a thing that it didn't appeal to me, anymore. Because hip hop is American music. It's as American as you get. in that it combines all these different sort of folk experiences that are purely sort of American, like jazz and blues and gospel, and this is, you know, it's all this mixture, and that I really kind of think in order to really push the music forward, like you have to tap into this original raw kind of energy, and I think that's lost sometimes. You know, you can't detach the music from James Brown and from Prince and all this kind of stuff. You know, because that's where it was born. And don't go and make a pastiche record where it's just like, oh, this is what you're trying to do. But there's some raw energy in there that you have to, if you're really trying to push it forward. I tend to feel like you have to have a sense of that. So revivalist, no, but maybe like Spirit Bear or some bullshit like that.
Go ahead with that bullshit, preaching, reaching and teaching and lukewarm speaking.
I ended up becoming Thunderbird Gerard because when I lived in London, there were some friends of mine who always jokingly used to call me T-Bird, and then when I moved to Berlin, it was just sort of me and Cece, who directs all my videos. I was recording all this material anyway, you know, because I finally, we moved into this house and I had a space all to myself, my own little studio, and was recording all this material, you know, but didn't have necessarily a name for it. And we just started throwing around the concept of this, you know, Gerard's my name, my middle name anyway, and it just seemed like a nice fit, but still sort of throwback to this kind of 1950s Americana sort of idea, classic Fourth Thunderbird. You know, Leave It All Behind came out in November of last year, and maybe the May before that, so it's just been just over a year or something like this.
Kind of a rapid thing then, I guess.
Yeah, but
is the Thunderbird Gerard stuff the first time you were rapping on stuff, or that?
I guess, yeah, and like being serious about it and not pretending that I was Marky Smith or James Murphy or something like this, but really just going, okay, well, you know, let's see if we can do this. Then yeah, totally.
Come on, pass the jerk, spread the word. I wanna see you jerk, don't stop.
To some extent, there's an end goal, but I've also sort of learned that sometimes it's just good to be along for the ride, and that in some ways the end goal is to, like, sort of every day, or as often as possible, produce better material. And I think maybe that's the. I'm a bit of a hippie in the way that I kind of believe that if obviously all the business stuff and all this other kind of stuff needs to be sorted, but if you make stuff that you put a lot into and you believe in, and whatever that all the other stuff kind of comes along. I think sometimes you can get it wrong when making commercial art, to like try and go, okay, so we're gonna write this track so that we can play Wembley next year, so but that being said, I'm a sucker for like a big hook. I like a big hook. Everybody, yeah.
Kind of touching on what we talked about before the interview, with you kind of moving around quite a bit. Do you think is Thunderbird Gerard a traveller by nature? I guess in the way that Tom Waits kind of is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Although the funny thing about Tom Waits is, sorry, now we're back to Tom Waits again. He actually has lived in Bodega Bay in California for a very long time, Sonoma County or whatever. But I'm quite nomadic by nature. However, I think I'm, at least for the moment, kind of settled in Berlin. But I don't know. Maybe some people are born that way. Maybe they, whatever. But I was adopted. So the first 9 months of my life, I was in an orphanage, and I think to some extent, as far as I'm concerned, my parents are my parents. But in some way, you always kind of. Maybe I won't, because then they're gonna see this and they're gonna, you said we're not your real family or something like this. No, but do you know what I mean? Like, if you know, or even if you know that you've come from somewhere else. I think there's this.
There's a mindset to it, I guess.
Yeah, and I think I generally tend to feel like I don't necessarily fit this place or that place, you know, and I have a lot of very different kinds of friends, and I don't have like one social group or anything like this, and so I think that like allows me to feel like I can go different places, or that I should. Yeah.
Does that inform the music a lot? That kind of attitude, mindset, background, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think so. Because I never say, oh, well, I won't listen to that, or I can't do that, or, you know, I generally try things once. If they're crap, they're crap.